You're 26, sitting in a laundromat on a Tuesday night because your apartment doesn't have a machine, and you're too tired to care that the fluorescent lights are making everything look sick and green. Your phone is propped against the detergent dispenser. You refresh the banking app one more time, even though you checked it 4 minutes ago, even though the number hasn't changed and isn't going to change between now and the spin cycle finishing. $100,412. You stare at it the way you'd stare at a test score you weren't sure you passed. You do the math out loud quietly, under your breath, so the guy folding towels 3 machines down doesn't think you've lost it. 6 years. 4 jobs. 1 car that died and got replaced by a worse one on purpose, because the payment was smaller. You cried a little, right there on the plastic chair, which is not a thing you expected, and not a thing you'll tell anyone about, because crying over a laundromat bank check sounds insane unless you were the one who did the 6 years. That number felt like the entire world cracking open. 19 years later, you're in a leather chair in an office that smells like cedar, across from a wealth advisor half your age. He's sliding you a printout you don't really need to read because you already know what it says. Your net worth crossed $10 million this quarter. He says it with the enthusiasm of a man announcing a mildly good weather forecast. You nod. You say something like good, that's good. You sign where he points. You're back in your car within 11 minutes, and you sit in the parking lot for a second, waiting to feel the thing you felt in the laundromat. It doesn't come. The first number changes your whole nervous system. The second number changes a printout. That's the shocking truth nobody tells you before you get there, and almost nobody believes when you say it out loud. The $100,000 will feel bigger than the $10 million. Not because the money means less. Because of what each one had to fight through to arrive. Let's go back to the 6 years, because that's where the real story is, not the laundromat, the years that got you there. Your first $100,000 was built entirely out of subtraction. You didn't have a strategy so much as a war against every dollar that tried to leave your hands. You ate the same 7 meals on rotation because you'd priced them out to the cent. You drove 40 minutes to a gym that was free through a coupon deal instead of the one 12 minutes away. You worked a second job on Saturdays folding clothes at a retail store where 19-year-olds who didn't need the money called you, sir, and you let them, because the alternative was correcting them and you didn't have the energy to be anything but invisible and efficient. You remember the exact week you crossed $10,000, because you texted your best friend a screenshot with 3 exclamation points, and he texted back nice, we should celebrate, and you said no, actually. Because celebrating cost money and you were $14,000 from where you needed to be to stop feeling like the floor could fall out from under you. At the bottom, every dollar is a decision. At the top, every dollar is a rounding error. The whole game is designed to feel exactly backwards from how it actually works. Nobody warns you that the hardest, most character-defining money you'll ever make is also, in absolute terms, the least of it. The first 100,000 asked more of you, more discipline, more nights, more of your actual identity, than the next 9,900,000 combined. And that imbalance is the thing almost nobody who hasn't lived both sides can understand when you try to explain it to them. Your brother-in-law found out about the 10 million before he found out about the 100,000, because he only came into your life 11 years ago, at your sister's wedding, already halfway convinced you were one of those finance guys, because of a suit he saw you wearing once. He doesn't know about the laundromat. He doesn't know about the 7 meals, or the Saturday shift folding clothes for teenagers, or the gym 40 minutes away. To him, you arrived already built, the way a house looks finished to someone who never saw the foundation get poured. He asks you, at a cookout, half joking, how it feels to have made it, and you give him the answer people want, something short and modest. Because the real answer takes longer than a cookout allows and doesn't flatter anybody the way he's hoping it will. The real answer is this: crossing $10 million felt like almost nothing at all, because by the time it happened, you'd already crossed the finish lines that mattered. The first was making $50,000 in a single year without panicking about rent. The second was paying cash for a car and not flinching. The third, the real one, the one that actually changed your face when you looked in a mirror, was the day you realized you hadn't checked your bank balance out of fear in over a year. That happened somewhere around $400,000. Nobody throws a party for $400,000. There's no milestone graphic for it. But that was the number where the war actually ended. $10 million doesn't feel like anything on its own. It feels like whatever piece you already built before it showed up. Your brother-in-law wouldn't believe you if you told him this straight, so you don't. You just say, "It's good, we're lucky," and pass him another burger, and let him keep believing the number is the whole story. Here's the part that actually is shocking, the part that took you almost 2 decades to be able to say without flinching. Your first $100,000 bought you more relief than the next $9.9 million combined. You've done the math on this more than once, alone, late at night, the way some people do crossword puzzles. That first 100,000 moved you out of the category of people who lose sleep over a flat tire. It meant a surprise medical bill was an inconvenience instead of a catastrophe. It meant you could say no to a bad job without your hands shaking while you did it. Every dollar in that first bucket was buying you distance from a version of yourself you never wanted to meet again. The 22-year-old choosing between the electric bill and the car payment, doing the math on a napkin in a diner because you couldn't afford the sit-down meal, just the coffee. The next $9,900,000 bought you things too. A bigger house. Flexibility in your calendar. The ability to help your parents without doing math first. But none of it, not one single dollar of it, bought you the thing that first 100,000 bought, because that thing was only for sale once. You can't buy relief from a fear you've already stopped having. Money's value isn't fixed. It's measured against the specific fear it's replacing. And you only get to feel the biggest fear replaced one time. This is the truth that makes people at parties go quiet when you say it, because it sounds like something a rich person says to make poor people feel better, and you understand why it lands that way. But you didn't invent the math. You just lived long enough on both sides of it to watch it prove itself out. There's a version of this story where the 10 million changes nothing at all, and for a while, you believed that version, because the version was simpler and let you avoid a harder truth. The truth is, it didn't change how you feel about the number. It changed how you feel about the people around the number, and that turned out to be a heavier thing to carry than the money itself. At $100,000, nobody in your life treated you differently, because nobody knew, because $100,000 doesn't look like anything from the outside. You still drove the same car. You still wore the same 3 sweaters in rotation. The number lived entirely inside you, private, unshared, and that privacy was its own kind of comfort. You got to feel proud of it without managing anyone else's reaction to it. At $10 million, the number started leaking, the way numbers that size eventually do. A comment your accountant's assistant made to someone who knew someone, a line on a filing your cousin happened to see because he does contract work for the county. And once it leaked, even a little, even second-hand and half-confirmed, you watched people start doing the same math your brother-in-law does at cookouts, except with less charm and more expectation behind it. Your college friend Marcus, who you haven't spoken to in 4 years beyond a birthday text, reappears with a business plan and a line about getting the old crew back together. And you can see, clear as anything, that the pitch isn't really for you, the person. It's for the number he's heard about. You used to be a friend. Now you're a funding round with a personality attached. Nobody pitches the version of you that ate 7 meals on rotation. They only pitch the version of you that showed up after the war was already won. You turn Marcus down gently. You don't tell him about the laundromat, or the diner napkin, or the 40-minute drive to the free gym, because explaining it wouldn't change his math. Your daughter is the only person who's ever asked you the right question about it, and she asked it by accident, doing homework at the kitchen table, some school project about goal setting that had her filling in a worksheet with boxes for short-term and long-term dreams. She looks up and asks, half paying attention, "Dad, what was your first big goal? Like money-wise?" You almost say 10 million, because it's the number people expect, the number that sounds like an answer worth telling a kid. Then you stop yourself, because you realize, sitting there at your own kitchen table, that it was never the true answer. $100,000, you tell her. She looks unimpressed, the way 15-year-olds look at numbers that don't have a comma in the right place to register as impressive to them yet. "That's it. That's the one that mattered," you say. And you try to explain it to her the way you've never quite managed to explain it to an adult, because kids sometimes hear things straighter than grown-ups do. You tell her about the diner napkin, the electric bill against the car payment, the exact feeling of watching a number cross a line and knowing, for the first time in your adult life, that the ground underneath you had stopped being made of ice. The 10 million was nice, you tell her. But it didn't feel like anything, because by the time it showed up, I already wasn't scared anymore. The first 100,000 is the one that took the fear away. Everything after that was just more. She writes something down on her worksheet. You don't ask what. You just sit there for a second, in your own kitchen, in a life that would look, from the outside, like it was built entirely around the second number, and you understand, maybe for the first time all the way through, that it was actually built around the first one. You're back in a laundromat, years later, not because you have to be, you could buy the machine, buy the building, buy the whole strip mall it sits in without checking a balance first, but because your dryer at home broke and the repair guy can't come until Thursday, and some old habit and you still refuses to pay for a rush appointment over a 2-day wait. You sit in the same kind of plastic chair, under the same kind of sick fluorescent light, and you catch yourself, for a second, reaching for your phone to check the balance the way you used to, out of a fear that isn't there anymore, a muscle memory with nothing left to protect against. You laugh, quietly, at your own hand doing that. Old ghosts, checking on old ghosts. A kid, maybe 24, 25, is folding towels 3 machines down, phone propped against the detergent dispenser, doing the exact math on his face you used to do on yours. You recognize the look immediately, because you wore it for 6 years. You don't say anything to him. You just let him have it, the way nobody interrupted you back then either, because that number, whatever it is for him, 10,000 or 10,012, is the one that's actually going to change his whole nervous system, and no story about $10 million from a stranger folding laundry is going to mean anything to him yet. It'll mean something to him in 19 years. Or it won't, not the way it means it to you. Everyone's first number lands differently, and that's the whole secret hiding under all of it. The first real one is never the biggest one. It's just the one that costs the most to earn, and the only one you only get to feel exactly once. You fold your own towels. You leave a bigger tip than usual in the tip jar by the register, for no reason you could explain to anyone, and you drive home to a house that $10 million bought, thinking the whole way about $100,000 that never once, in 19 years, stopped being the real story.